Question 1. The efficiency study reveals that a significant portion of system administration tasks in a Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environment are being performed manually, leading to increased error rates and longer resolution times for common issues. Which of the following approaches best addresses these inefficiencies while adhering to professional system administration best practices? Option A. Rely on experienced administrators to continue performing tasks manually, trusting their expertise to minimize errors and ensure timely resolution. Option B. Develop complex, custom-built external applications to manage all administrative functions, bypassing Domino's native tools entirely. Option C. Focus solely on increasing the number of administrators to handle the manual workload without addressing the underlying process inefficiencies. Option D. Implement a comprehensive scripting strategy using Lotus script and Domino's built-in administrative tools to automate repetitive tasks, coupled with regular review and optimization of these scripts. The correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive scripting strategy using Lotus script and Domino's built-in administrative tools to automate repetitive tasks, coupled with regular review and optimization of these scripts. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that a significant portion of system administration tasks in a Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environment are being performed manually, leading to increased error rates and longer resolution times for common issues. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts the stability, security, and user productivity of the organization's messaging and collaboration platform. A system administrator must balance the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of their chosen solutions, ensuring compliance with internal policies and any relevant industry best practices for data management and system integrity. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that not only addresses the current inefficiencies, but also aligns with future scalability and maintainability goals. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the automation of repetitive tasks through scripting and the utilization of Domino's built-in administrative tools. This aligns with industry best practices for system administration, which advocate for automation to reduce human error, improve consistency, and free up administrator time for more strategic initiatives. By leveraging Domino's native capabilities, such as agent execution, scheduled tasks, and the Domino Administrator Client's advanced features, administrators can create robust, repeatable processes. This approach is inherently compliant with the principles of good system governance, ensuring that administrative actions are logged, auditable, and executed in a controlled manner, thereby minimizing security risks and maintaining data integrity. An incorrect approach that relies solely on ad hoc manual interventions without documentation or standardization is professionally unacceptable. This introduces a high risk of inconsistent execution, increased errors, and a lack of auditability, which can lead to security vulnerabilities and data corruption. Such an approach fails to adhere to basic principles of IT governance and operational discipline. Another incorrect approach that involves developing custom, complex external applications without thorough testing or integration planning is also professionally unsound. While custom solutions can be powerful, they often introduce significant maintenance overhead, potential compatibility issues with future Domino updates, and can be difficult to troubleshoot. This can lead to unexpected system behavior and security risks if not managed meticulously. A further incorrect approach that neglects to involve end users or stakeholders in the evaluation of new administrative processes can lead to solutions that do not meet actual business needs or disrupt user workflows. This demonstrates a failure in communication and user-centric design, which are crucial for successful IT system management. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of current inefficiencies, identification of potential solutions, both native and custom, evaluation of risks and benefits for each, and a phased implementation plan. This includes prioritizing automation for high-frequency, low-complexity tasks, documenting all processes, and ensuring that any changes are tested in a non-production environment before deployment. Collaboration with IT management and relevant stakeholders is essential to ensure alignment with organizational objectives and to secure necessary resources. Question 2. Stakeholder feedback indicates that some users are reporting difficulties accessing specific application data within Lotus Notes Domino 8.5, while simultaneously, there are concerns about the broad administrative access levels granted to the IT support team. As the system administrator, what is the most appropriate course of action to address these competing concerns and ensure both operational efficiency and robust security? Option A. Conduct a detailed review of the access control lists, ACL, for affected applications and user mail files, identifying and removing any unnecessary roles or access levels for administrators and ensuring users have the minimum required permissions to perform their duties. Option B. Grant all IT support personnel manager or designer access to all databases and mail files to expedite troubleshooting and address user access issues more efficiently. Option C. Immediately revoke all administrative access to all databases and mail files until a comprehensive security audit can be completed, and then re-grant access on a case-by-case basis after extensive verification. Option D. Maintain the current ACL configurations, as they have been in place for a considerable time and have not previously resulted in widespread reported issues, and advise users to submit formal change requests for any access modifications. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed review of the access control lists, ACL, for affected applications and user mail files, identifying and removing any unnecessary roles or access levels for administrators and ensuring users have the minimum required permissions to perform their duties. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in system administration, balancing user productivity with security and compliance requirements. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the principles of least privilege and data access control within the context of an established Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environment, ensuring that administrative actions are both effective and adhere to best practices. Careful judgment is required to avoid overgranting permissions, which can lead to security vulnerabilities and data breaches, or overly restricting access, which can hinder legitimate business operations. The correct approach, which involves reviewing and refining existing access control lists, ACL, based on the principle of least privilege, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the fundamental security tenet of granting users only the minimum permissions necessary to perform their job functions. In the context of Lotus Notes Domino 8.5, this translates to meticulously examining ACL entries for databases and mail files, removing unnecessary roles or access levels, and ensuring that access is granted only to specific users or groups who require it. This proactive measure minimizes the attack surface and reduces the risk of unauthorized data access or modification, thereby upholding data integrity and confidentiality. An incorrect approach that involves broadly granting manager or designer access to all administrators, regardless of their specific responsibilities, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This violates the principle of least privilege, creating an environment where administrators have excessive permissions, increasing the risk of accidental or malicious data compromise. Such a practice could lead to non-compliance with data protection regulations, if applicable to the specific jurisdiction implied by the exam, which is assumed to be U.S.-centric for C 2040-956, unless otherwise specified, and a breach of professional ethics by failing to safeguard sensitive information. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the feedback and maintain the status quo of existing ACLs, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of responsiveness to stakeholder concerns and a failure to proactively manage security risks. It can lead to continued vulnerabilities and potential non-compliance if the existing ACLs are already too permissive. Ethically, it signifies a disregard for the organization's security posture and the trust placed in the administrator. Finally, an incorrect approach of immediately revoking all access for all users until a full audit can be completed, while seemingly security-focused, is professionally unsound due to its disruptive impact on business operations. While security is paramount, such an extreme measure without a phased approach or clear communication can cripple productivity and lead to significant operational challenges. It fails to balance security with the legitimate needs of the business and demonstrates poor planning and communication, which are essential professional skills. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, thoroughly understand the reported issue and its potential impact. Second, consult relevant documentation and best practices, including the principles of least privilege and data access control. Third, Develop a phased plan that prioritizes security risks while minimizing operational disruption. Fourth, communicate clearly with stakeholders about the proposed changes and their rationale. Finally, implement changes methodically, monitor their effectiveness, and be prepared to adjust as needed. Question 3. Implementation of a new security policy restricting access to sensitive configuration files within IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. Requires careful planning to ensure system integrity and administrative functionality. Which of the following approaches best mitigates potential risks and ensures a successful deployment? Option A. Update the security policy documentation to reflect the new restrictions and assume administrators will adapt their workflows accordingly without explicit testing or communication. Option B. Deploy the new security policy to a subset of users on the production server to gauge initial reactions before a full rollout. Option C. Apply the new security policy directly to the production Domino server environment after a brief review of the policy's intent. Option D. Implement the new security policy in a dedicated test environment. Thoroughly validate its impact on administrative tasks and system performance, and then schedule a phased rollout to the production environment with clear communication to all relevant administrators. The correct answer is C. Apply the new security policy directly to the production Domino server environment after a brief review of the policy's intent. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in system administration, balancing the need for robust security with the operational requirements of user access and data integrity. Specifically, implementing a new security policy that restricts access to sensitive configuration files in IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. Requires careful consideration of potential impacts on system administrators' ability to perform their duties, as well as the risk of inadvertently locking out legitimate users or processes. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the security measures are effective without causing undue disruption or creating new vulnerabilities. The correct approach involves a phased rollout and thorough testing. This aligns with best professional practices by minimizing risk and ensuring a smooth transition. By first implementing the policy in a test environment, administrators can identify and resolve any conflicts or unintended consequences before they affect the production system. Communicating the changes to all affected parties, including other administrators and potentially end users if their access is indirectly impacted, is crucial for transparency and to allow for timely adjustments. This proactive communication and testing strategy directly supports the principle of maintaining system stability and operational efficiency, which are core responsibilities of a system administrator. While the exam syllabus for C2040-956 IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5 System Administration Update does not explicitly cite specific U.S. regulatory frameworks for this particular technical implementation, the underlying principles of due diligence, risk management, and operational integrity are universally recognized professional standards in IT administration. An incorrect approach would be to immediately apply the new security policy to the production environment without prior testing. This bypasses essential risk assessment and validation steps, potentially leading to system outages, data corruption, or security breaches if the policy is misconfigured or has unforeseen interactions with existing configurations. This failure to exercise due diligence is professionally unacceptable and could have significant operational and security repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to implement the policy without informing other administrators or stakeholders. This lack of communication can lead to confusion, duplicated efforts, or conflicting actions, undermining the collaborative nature of system administration and potentially creating security gaps or operational inefficiencies. It demonstrates a disregard for the impact of administrative actions on the broader team and system. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the objective. Clearly define the purpose and expected outcome of the proposed change. 2. Assess the risks. Identify potential negative impacts on system stability, security, and user access. 3. Plan the implementation. Develop a detailed plan that includes testing, rollback procedures, and communication strategies. 4. Execute in a controlled manner. Implement the change in a test environment first, followed by a phased rollout in production if feasible. 5. Monitor and validate. Continuously monitor the system after implementation to ensure the change has the desired effect and has not introduced new issues. 6. Document. Record all changes, their rationale, and their outcomes. Question 4. System analysis indicates a critical need to implement a new, more granular security model within the IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. Environment to enhance data protection for sensitive customer information. The current access control lists, ACL, are overly permissive, and the migration plan involves reclassifying user roles and associated data access privileges. What is the most professionally responsible and regulatory compliant approach to deploying this new security model? Option A. Grant all users full access to all databases under the new model as a temporary measure, with plans to refine permissions later once the initial migration is complete. Option B. Implement the new security model by processing user requests for access on a case-by-case basis, without prior validation of their roles or the sensitivity of the data they are requesting. Option C. Conduct a pilot deployment of the new security model with a select group of users and databases, thoroughly testing access controls and validating data integrity before a full rollout. Option D. Immediately apply the new security model to all users and databases, then address any reported access issues as they arise. The correct answer is D. Immediately apply the new security model to all users and databases, then address any reported access issues as they arise. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in a Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. Environment. Ensuring secure and compliant access to sensitive data when migrating users to a new security model. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for user access with the long-term security posture and regulatory compliance of the organization. A hasty or incomplete implementation can lead to data breaches, unauthorized access, and significant regulatory penalties. The system administrator must carefully consider the implications of each access control decision on data integrity and confidentiality. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased rollout of the new security model, starting with a pilot group and thoroughly testing the access controls before a full deployment. This aligns with best professional practices for system administration, emphasizing risk mitigation and controlled change. From a regulatory perspective, this methodical approach demonstrates due diligence in protecting sensitive data, a key requirement under various data protection regulations. It allows for the identification and remediation of any unintended access vulnerabilities before they can be exploited, thereby minimizing the risk of non-compliance with data privacy laws. This approach also facilitates user training and support, ensuring a smoother transition and reducing the likelihood of user errors that could compromise security. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the new security model without a pilot phase and comprehensive testing is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It exposes the organization to immediate risks of unauthorized access and data breaches, violating the principle of data protection and potentially contravening regulations that mandate reasonable security measures. Failing to validate access controls before a full rollout demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential impact on data confidentiality and integrity. Similarly, granting broad access permissions to all users as a temporary measure, even with the intention of refining them later, is a severe security lapse. This approach directly violates the principle of least privilege, a fundamental security concept and a common regulatory expectation. It creates an environment ripe for accidental or malicious data misuse, leading to potential breaches and noncompliance with data governance policies and legal requirements. Providing access based solely on user requests without proper authorization or verification also represents a failure in established security protocols and regulatory compliance, as it bypasses necessary checks and balances designed to protect sensitive information. Professional reasoning. When faced with such an implementation, professionals should adopt a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the new security model and its implications for data access. Second, identify critical data sets and user roles. Third, design a phased rollout strategy that includes a pilot group and rigorous testing of access controls against defined security policies and regulatory requirements. Fourth, establish clear communication channels with stakeholders and end users. Finally, document all changes, testing results, and access configurations to demonstrate compliance and facilitate future audits. This systematic process ensures that security is maintained, compliance is upheld, and the organization's data assets are protected throughout the transition. Question 5. The audit findings indicate that the recent IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 system administration update was deployed to the production environment without a comprehensive validation of access control lists, ACL, and audit logging mechanisms against the organization's established data privacy policies and regulatory mandates. Which of the following approaches best addresses this critical finding and ensures future compliance? Option A. Immediately initiate a rollback of the update to the previous stable version and conduct a full risk assessment and testing cycle in a staging environment before redeployment. Option B. Deploy the update to a limited set of non-critical servers first to observe its behavior before a full production rollout, without specific validation of ACLs or audit logs. Option C. Implement the update immediately to the remaining servers, focusing on restoring core application functionality and addressing audit concerns in a subsequent maintenance window. Option D. Proceed with the update, assuming that the standard update process inherently maintains existing security configurations and audit trails. Correct answer is A. Immediately initiate a rollback of the update to the previous stable version and conduct a full risk assessment and testing cycle in a staging environment before redeployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in a regulated environment where system updates must not only maintain functionality, but also adhere to strict data privacy and security mandates. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for a system upgrade with the potential for unintended consequences on data access controls and audit trails, which are critical for compliance. The pressure to deploy quickly can lead to overlooking crucial validation steps, making careful judgment and a structured approach paramount. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a phased rollout with comprehensive pre- and post-implementation testing, including specific validation of access control lists, ACL, and audit logging mechanisms against established security policies and regulatory requirements, represents best professional practice. This approach ensures that the update does not inadvertently weaken security posture or compromise data integrity. Adherence to documented change management procedures, which typically include risk assessment and rollback plans, is a key regulatory and ethical imperative. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of non-compliance with data protection regulations by ensuring that data remains protected and access is appropriately governed throughout the update process. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying the update directly to the production environment without a staged rollout or thorough testing of ACLs and audit logs is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses essential risk mitigation steps, potentially leading to unauthorized data access or a breakdown in the audit trail, which directly contravenes data protection laws and internal security policies. Implementing the update without verifying that existing audit logging configurations remain intact and functional is also a failure. Audit logs are crucial for demonstrating compliance, investigating security incidents, and ensuring accountability. Their disruption or loss can lead to severe regulatory penalties and a loss of trust. Performing the update without a documented rollback plan introduces unacceptable risk. If the update causes unforeseen issues, the inability to revert to a stable state can prolong system downtime and exacerbate any compliance breaches, demonstrating a lack of due diligence and professional responsibility. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to system updates. This involves thoroughly understanding the potential impact of the update on security, data privacy, and compliance requirements. A structured change management process, including impact analysis, testing in a non-production environment, phased deployment, and post-implementation verification, is essential. When dealing with regulated systems, prioritizing adherence to specific compliance mandates, e.g., data access controls, auditability, over speed of deployment is a fundamental aspect of professional decision-making. Question 6. Benchmark analysis indicates that a newly mandated security policy for IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 system administration update requires stricter access controls for sensitive data. As the system administrator, you are tasked with implementing this policy across the entire organization. However, Initial feedback suggests that a full, immediate rollout may significantly impact user productivity and potentially cause unforeseen system conflicts. What is the most professionally responsible approach to implementing this security policy? Option A. Deploy the security policy immediately across all users, accepting the potential for initial disruption and addressing issues as they arise. Option B. Postpone the implementation of the security policy indefinitely due to anticipated user resistance and potential productivity impacts. Option C. Implement the security policy with a broad exception for all users until a more comprehensive analysis can be completed. Option D. Implement the security policy in phases, beginning with a pilot group of users, and conduct thorough testing and gather feedback before a full organizational rollout. The correct answer is D. Implement the security policy in phases, beginning with a pilot group of users, and conduct thorough testing and gather feedback before a full organizational rollout. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in enterprise environments, balancing the need for robust security and compliance with the practical demands of user productivity and system performance. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the security policies of IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 system administration update in a way that is both effective and minimally disruptive. System administrators must navigate potential conflicts between strict security protocols and user expectations, ensuring that the chosen solution adheres to the spirit and letter of the regulations while remaining functional. The pressure to implement a solution quickly, coupled with the potential for unforeseen consequences, makes careful judgment and a thorough understanding of the system's capabilities and limitations paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of the security policy, starting with a pilot group and thorough testing. This aligns with best practices for system administration and regulatory compliance. By testing the policy on a limited user base, administrators can identify and resolve any performance bottlenecks, compatibility issues, or unintended security gaps before a full rollout. This iterative process allows for adjustments based on real-world feedback and data, minimizing the risk of widespread disruption or non-compliance. This approach demonstrates due diligence, a key ethical and regulatory expectation in system administration, ensuring that security measures are effective without compromising essential business functions. It also allows for the collection of data to justify any necessary policy modifications, a crucial step in maintaining an auditable and compliant system. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the security policy immediately across all users without prior testing is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks widespread system instability, data access issues, and potential security vulnerabilities if the policy is flawed or incompatible with existing configurations, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adequately assess the impact of the change, which could lead to violations of data protection regulations or internal compliance mandates. Deploying the policy with a broad exception for all users until further notice is also professionally unacceptable. While seemingly a pragmatic solution to avoid immediate disruption, it effectively negates the purpose of the security policy and creates a significant compliance gap. This approach signals an abdication of responsibility for enforcing security standards and leaves the system vulnerable to the very threats the policy was designed to mitigate. It also creates an unsustainable administrative burden to manage exceptions and track compliance. Ignoring the policy altogether due to perceived user resistance is a direct violation of administrative duties and regulatory requirements. System administrators are tasked with implementing and enforcing security policies to protect the organization's data and systems. Failure to do so, even in the face of user pushback, constitutes negligence and can lead to severe legal and financial repercussions for the organization, as well as professional sanctions for the administrator. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with this type of implementation challenge should adopt a structured, risk-based approach. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the security policy and its intended objectives. 2. Assessing the potential impact of the policy on system performance, user productivity, and existing configurations. 3. Developing a phased implementation plan that includes pilot testing and user feedback mechanisms. 4. Establishing clear communication channels with stakeholders, including end users and management, to manage expectations and gather input. 5. Documenting all decisions, testing results, and implementation steps to ensure auditability and accountability. This systematic process ensures that security objectives are met while minimizing operational risks and maintaining compliance. Question 7. Investigation of the most effective and secure method for restoring user access to a critical Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 application following a planned system update, considering the potential for misconfigurations in access control lists and the need to minimize operational disruption. Option A. Implement a phased rollout of access permissions, starting with a pilot group and gradually expanding to the full user base after verification. Option B. Apply a temporary broad access level for all users until a comprehensive ACL review can be performed. Option C. Restrict access to only administrative personnel until all user access issues are fully resolved. Option D. Grant full access to all users immediately after the update is technically complete. The correct answer is D. Grant full access to all users immediately after the update is technically complete. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environments, ensuring secure and efficient user access management during a critical system update. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for access by a large group of users with the imperative to maintain system integrity and adhere to security policies. The pressure to restore full functionality quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise security or compliance. The system administrator must navigate technical requirements, user expectations, and potential security vulnerabilities. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased rollout of access permissions, starting with a pilot group and gradually expanding to the full user base. This method represents best professional practice because it allows for thorough testing of the new access configurations in a controlled environment. It minimizes the risk of widespread disruption or security breaches by identifying and rectifying issues before they affect all users. This approach aligns with general IT best practices for change management and risk mitigation, which are implicitly expected in professional system administration. Even without specific regulatory mandates for this exact scenario, it demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to a stable and secure production environment. Incorrect approach is analysis. Granting full access to all users immediately upon completion of the update is professionally unacceptable. This approach bypasses essential verification steps, creating a significant security risk. If the access control lists, ACL, or user roles were misconfigured during the update, all users could gain unintended access to sensitive data, leading to a data breach. This failure to implement proper testing and validation constitutes negligence and a breach of professional responsibility to protect organizational data. Implementing a temporary, overly permissive access level for all users until a proper ACL review can be conducted is also professionally unacceptable. While seemingly a quick fix, it introduces a period of heightened vulnerability. The risk of unauthorized access or data modification during this temporary phase is substantial. This approach prioritizes expediency over security, which is a direct violation of the professional duty to maintain a secure system. Restricting access to only a select few administrators until all user access issues are resolved is also not the optimal approach. While it prioritizes security, it severely hinders business operations and user productivity. The professional responsibility includes enabling users to perform their duties efficiently while maintaining security. This approach creates an unacceptable operational bottleneck and fails to address the core requirement of restoring user access in a controlled manner. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing this situation should employ a structured change management process. This involves thorough planning, including defining rollback procedures, testing the update in a non-production environment, and developing a phased deployment strategy. Risk assessment is crucial to identify potential security and operational impacts. Communication with stakeholders, including end users and management, about the update schedule and potential impacts is also vital. The decision-making process should prioritize security and data integrity, followed by operational continuity and user productivity, all within the framework of established organizational policies and best practices. Question 8. What factors determine the most effective strategy for implementing a new organizational security policy within an existing IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 system, considering the need to minimize disruption to daily operations and ensure compliance with data protection guidelines. Option A. Prioritizing the speed of implementation over thorough testing, with a focus on deploying the policy before the end of the fiscal quarter to meet internal deadlines. Option B. A phased rollout strategy, beginning with a pilot group of users and applications, coupled with comprehensive pre-implementation testing and clear communication channels for user feedback and issue resolution. Option C. Implementation of the new policy solely based on the recommendations of the security software vendor, without independent validation or consideration of Domino 8.5 specific configurations. Option D. Immediate, organization-wide deployment of the new security policy to ensure uniform application and rapid achievement of security objectives. The correct answer is B. A phased rollout strategy, beginning with a pilot group of users and applications, coupled with comprehensive pre-implementation testing and clear communication channels for user feedback and issue resolution. Explanation: the scenario of implementing a new security policy in an existing IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environment presents a significant professional challenge due to the inherent complexity of legacy systems and the critical need to maintain data integrity and user access. Domino 8.5, while robust, has specific architectural considerations that impact how security updates are rolled out. The challenge lies in balancing stringent security requirements with the operational continuity of the business, ensuring that the implementation does not disrupt critical workflows or compromise sensitive data. Careful judgment is required to anticipate potential conflicts between the new policy and existing configurations, user permissions, and application dependencies. The correct approach, which involves a phased rollout with thorough testing and user communication, represents best professional practice because it aligns with principles of risk management and change control, fundamental to IT system administration. This method minimizes the potential for widespread disruption by isolating issues to smaller groups of users or applications during testing phases. It also adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation of due diligence in system administration, ensuring that changes are implemented in a controlled and predictable manner. Proactive communication with users about upcoming changes and potential impacts is crucial for managing expectations and facilitating a smoother transition, thereby upholding professional responsibility. Incorrect approaches fail to adequately address the risks associated with system changes. An approach that bypasses thorough testing and directly implements the policy across the entire organization, for instance, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential for data loss, system downtime, or unauthorized access, which could have legal and financial repercussions for the organization. Similarly, implementing the policy without adequate user training or communication is professionally unacceptable. This oversight can lead to user frustration, decreased productivity, and accidental policy violations, all of which undermine the intended security benefits and can be seen as a failure to adequately support the user base, a key aspect of professional IT service. Another incorrect approach might be to prioritize speed of implementation over comprehensive security validation, which is a direct contravention of the core principles of system security and data protection, potentially exposing the organization to breaches and regulatory penalties. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a structured, risk-based approach to change management. This involves clearly defining the scope and objectives of the change, identifying potential risks and their impact, developing mitigation strategies, and establishing clear rollback procedures. Thorough testing in a representative environment, followed by a phased rollout with continuous monitoring and feedback loops, is essential. Transparent and consistent communication with all stakeholders, including end users and management, is paramount throughout the entire process. This systematic approach ensures that changes are implemented effectively, securely, and with minimal disruption, upholding professional standards and regulatory compliance. Question 9. When evaluating the implementation of an IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 system administration update, which approach best mitigates the risk of data corruption and service disruption while adhering to professional system administration best practices? Option A. Deploy the update using a single, comprehensive automated script across all servers without manual verification, assuming the script has been thoroughly tested in isolation. Option B. Perform the upgrade during peak business hours to minimize the impact on the maintenance window, with minimal user notification. Option C. Conduct a phased rollout, beginning with a non-production environment for testing, followed by a pilot deployment to a select group of users, with a documented rollback plan in place. Option D. Immediately upgrade all production Domino servers simultaneously during a scheduled maintenance window, relying on automated rollback scripts. Correct answer is D. Immediately upgrade all production Domino servers simultaneously during a scheduled maintenance window, relying on automated rollback scripts. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in enterprise messaging systems, ensuring data integrity and availability during a critical upgrade. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for uninterrupted service with the inherent risks of introducing new software versions. A system administrator must meticulously plan and execute the upgrade to minimize downtime and prevent data loss, all while adhering to established best practices for system administration and potentially internal corporate policies regarding change management and disaster recovery. The correct approach involves a phased rollout and thorough testing. This strategy represents best professional practice because it systematically reduces risk. By first implementing the upgrade in a non-production environment, a test or staging server, administrators can identify and resolve potential compatibility issues, performance degradations, or unexpected behaviors before they impact live users. Following this, a pilot deployment to a small group of users allows for real-world validation of the upgrade's stability and functionality. This iterative process, coupled with robust rollback plans, aligns with principles of risk management and operational resilience, which are implicitly expected in system administration roles. While specific regulations for Lotus notes Domino 8.5 system administration are not explicitly detailed in a public, universally applicable legal framework, the principles of due diligence, prudent system management, and data protection are universally recognized professional and ethical obligations. An incorrect approach that involves immediately upgrading all production servers without prior testing poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. Such an action demonstrates a failure in due diligence and a disregard for potential data loss or service disruption. This could lead to breaches of service-level agreements, SLAs, with users or clients, and in regulated industries, could even have legal ramifications if data integrity or availability is compromised, leading to financial or operational harm. Another incorrect approach, performing the upgrade during peak business hours without adequate communication or a rollback strategy, is equally problematic. This exhibits poor planning and a lack of consideration for the business impact. It directly violates the principle of minimizing disruption and could result in significant productivity losses, customer dissatisfaction, and potential reputational damage. Ethically, it shows a lack of responsibility towards the organization's operational continuity. A third incorrect approach, relying solely on automated scripts without manual verification or oversight, introduces a high degree of risk. While automation is valuable, critical system changes require human judgment and the ability to respond to unforeseen circumstances. Over-reliance on automation without a human safety net can lead to cascading failures if the script encounters an unexpected error, potentially causing widespread system instability or data corruption. This demonstrates a failure to exercise professional judgment and oversight. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Risk assessment. Identify potential risks associated with the upgrade, e.g., data loss, downtime, performance issues, security vulnerabilities. 2. Planning. Develop a detailed plan that includes pre-upgrade checks, testing phases, deployment strategy, communication plan, and a comprehensive rollback procedure. 3. Testing. Conduct thorough testing in a controlled environment that mirrors the production setup as closely as possible. 4. Phased deployment. Implement the upgrade in stages, starting with non-critical systems or a small user group before a full rollout. 5. Monitoring. Continuously monitor system performance and stability during and after the upgrade. 6. Documentation. Maintain detailed records of the upgrade process, including any issues encountered and their resolutions. 7. Communication. Keep all relevant stakeholders informed throughout the process. Question 10. To address the challenge of slow mail delivery performance in IBM Lotus notes Domino 8.5, A system administrator has identified that large mail files are a primary contributing factor. The administrator needs to implement a process optimization strategy to improve this performance. Which of the following approaches is the most professionally sound and compliant method? Option A. Temporarily disable mail file security checks during the mail file reorganization process to expedite the operation. Option B. Develop and immediately deploy a complex, untested script to automate mail file compaction across all servers to achieve rapid size reduction. Option C. Schedule a regular, controlled reorganization of user mail files during off-peak hours to optimize database structure and improve access times. Option D. Randomly delete old mail messages from user mail files to reduce their overall size and improve performance. Correct answer is C. Schedule a regular, controlled reorganization of user mail files during off-peak hours to optimize database structure and improve access times. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in system administration, balancing performance optimization with the need for robust security and data integrity, particularly within the context of IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to improve mail delivery performance without introducing new vulnerabilities or violating established administrative policies. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both technically sound and adheres to the implicit regulatory and policy framework governing system administration, which in this context would be guided by IBM's best practices and any internal organizational policies related to data handling and system uptime. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified performance bottleneck, large mail files, through a targeted and controlled method that minimizes disruption and risk. Reorganizing mail files is a standard administrative task designed to improve database performance and manage storage efficiently. This process, when executed correctly, ensures that data remains accessible and intact, thereby upholding the principle of data integrity, a cornerstone of responsible system administration. It also aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of maintaining system availability and performance for business operations. An incorrect approach that involves disabling mail file security checks during the reorganization process would be professionally unacceptable. This action would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure by introducing a critical security vulnerability. By bypassing security checks, the administrator would be creating an opening for unauthorized access or data corruption, directly violating the principle of maintaining a secure computing environment. This could lead to breaches of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which have serious implications for compliance and trust. Another incorrect approach, such as randomly deleting old mail messages to reduce file size, is also professionally unacceptable. This action demonstrates a disregard for data retention policies and potential legal discovery requirements. It constitutes an ethical failure by potentially destroying evidence or critical business information without proper authorization or process. This could lead to severe legal repercussions and damage the organization's reputation. A third incorrect approach, which involves implementing a complex, untested script for automated mail file compaction without thorough review and staging, carries significant risks. While automation can be beneficial, deploying untested solutions in a production environment is a failure in due diligence. It could lead to unintended data loss, system instability, or security loopholes, all of which are professionally irresponsible and could violate operational guidelines and best practices for change management. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of the problem, identification of potential solutions, and a risk-benefit analysis for each. This includes evaluating the technical feasibility, potential impact on system performance and security, and adherence to organizational policies and any relevant industry standards or regulations. Prioritizing solutions that are well-documented, tested, and implemented with minimal disruption and maximum security is paramount. A phased rollout and rollback plan should always be considered for any significant system change. Question 11. The assessment process reveals a critical performance issue impacting multiple users' ability to access their mail databases in IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. The system administrator suspects a potential issue with a specific user's mail file that might be causing a domino effect. To diagnose the problem quickly, the administrator considers directly accessing the user's mail database to examine its contents and configuration, without first obtaining explicit permission from the user or higher management. Option A. Immediately escalate the issue to the IT security team and request their assistance in a coordinated, authorized investigation, involving user notification if necessary. Option B. Inform the affected users that there is a performance issue and advise them to wait for a resolution without providing specific details or timelines. Option C. Attempt to resolve the issue by restarting the Domino server without further investigation into the specific user's mail file. Option D. Directly access the user's mail database to investigate the suspected issue, documenting the access and findings for later review. The correct answer is D. Directly access the user's mail database to investigate the suspected issue, documenting the access and findings for later review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in data privacy and system integrity, particularly within the context of IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 administration. The core dilemma lies in balancing the immediate need for troubleshooting with the imperative to protect sensitive user data and maintain system security, all while adhering to established administrative protocols and potential regulatory frameworks. Though for this exam, we focus on best practices within the system's operational guidelines and general IT ethics, assuming no specific external regulations are mandated for this question's context. The administrator must exercise careful judgment to avoid actions that could compromise data confidentiality, introduce further security vulnerabilities, or violate user trust. The correct approach involves a systematic, documented, and authorized method for accessing and analyzing sensitive data. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing data security, maintaining audit trails, and ensuring accountability. By following established procedures, such as obtaining explicit authorization and using secure, audited access methods, the administrator upholds the principles of data privacy and system integrity. This approach minimizes the risk of unauthorized access or data misuse, which are critical ethical and operational considerations in system administration. An incorrect approach would be to bypass established security protocols or access user data without proper authorization. For instance, directly accessing a user's mail database without a clear, documented reason and explicit permission from either the user or a designated authority, like management or legal, constitutes a significant ethical and professional failure. This action violates the principle of least privilege and can lead to breaches of confidentiality, potentially exposing sensitive personal or business information. Such an action could also violate internal company policies and, in broader contexts, data protection regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to share the sensitive information discovered with unauthorized personnel, even if the initial access was for a legitimate purpose. This further exacerbates the breach of confidentiality and trust. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes 1. Understanding the problem and its scope. 2. Identifying potential solutions and their implications, particularly concerning data security and privacy. 3. Consulting relevant policies, procedures, and authorization requirements. 4. Seeking appropriate authorization before proceeding with any action that involves accessing sensitive data. 5. Documenting all actions taken and decisions made. 6. Communicating transparently with relevant stakeholders. This structured approach ensures that actions are justifiable, ethical, and aligned with professional responsibilities. Question 12. The evaluation methodology shows that a critical performance issue is impacting the availability of a core business application hosted on IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5. Initial diagnostics suggest the problem might be related to a specific user's mail database, which is unusually large and consuming significant server resources. As the system administrator, you need to investigate this database to identify the cause of the performance degradation. What is the most appropriate and ethically sound course of action? Option A. Inform the user that their mail database is causing performance issues and request their cooperation in resolving it, offering to assist them in cleaning up their mailbox. Option B. Document the suspected issue and escalate it to your direct supervisor, requesting guidance on how to proceed with authorized access to the user's mail database or to involve the user directly. Option C. Immediately access the user's mail database using your administrative credentials to analyze its contents and identify the problematic elements. Option D. Access the user's mail database and perform a full backup before any analysis, as a precautionary measure to ensure data integrity. The correct answer is C. Immediately access the user's mail database using your administrative credentials to analyze its contents and identify the problematic elements. Explanation: this scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in system administration, specifically concerning data privacy and access control within an IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environment. The challenge lies in balancing the need for system troubleshooting and performance monitoring with the fundamental right to privacy of end users and the regulatory obligations to protect sensitive information. A system administrator might be tempted to access user mail databases without explicit consent for expediency, but this action carries significant risks. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to established organizational policies and relevant data protection regulations. In the context of IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 system administration, this means understanding and applying principles of least privilege and data confidentiality. Accessing user data should only occur when absolutely necessary, with proper authorization, and with the explicit knowledge and consent of the user or their designated representative, unless legally mandated otherwise. This aligns with best practices for data stewardship and compliance with privacy laws, ensuring that user data is not compromised. An incorrect approach would be to bypass established procedures and access user mail databases without authorization, even if the intention is to resolve a technical issue. This constitutes a breach of trust and a violation of privacy. Such actions could lead to regulatory penalties, legal repercussions, and severe damage to the organization's reputation. For instance, accessing personal correspondence or confidential business information without consent could violate data protection laws, leading to fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on a vague understanding of system needs without documented authorization, which fails to provide a clear audit trail and justification for data access, leaving the administrator and the organization vulnerable. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of organizational policies regarding data access and privacy. When faced with a situation requiring access to user data, the administrator should first consult these policies. If the situation is ambiguous or falls outside the scope of documented procedures, the administrator must seek explicit authorization from their supervisor or the designated data protection officer. Documenting all requests, authorizations, and actions taken is crucial for accountability and compliance. This systematic approach ensures that all actions are justifiable, transparent, and in accordance with legal and ethical standards. Question 13. Market research demonstrates that users are experiencing intermittent performance issues with their IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 client, leading to frustration and reduced productivity. As a system administrator, you suspect a potential issue with a specific user's mail database size or configuration, which might be contributing to the problem. You have the technical capability to directly access this user's mail database to investigate. What is the most appropriate and ethically sound course of action to address this suspected issue while respecting user privacy and adhering to best practices in system administration? Option A. Contact the user directly, explain the suspected cause of their performance issues, and request their permission to access their mail database for troubleshooting. Option B. Ignore the individual user's performance issues and wait for a broader system-wide problem to emerge before investigating. Option C. Forward a sample of the user's emails to a general IT support mailbox for analysis by the wider team. Option D. Immediately access the user's mail database to diagnose and resolve the suspected performance issue. The correct answer is D. Immediately access the user's mail database to diagnose and resolve the suspected performance issue. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a classic ethical dilemma in system administration, specifically concerning data privacy and the responsible handling of sensitive user information within an IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environment. The challenge lies in balancing the organization's need for operational efficiency and security monitoring with the individual user's right to privacy. The administrator is privy to information that, while potentially useful for troubleshooting, could also be considered intrusive if accessed without proper justification or consent. The pressure to resolve an issue quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise ethical standards. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes user privacy and adheres to established data handling policies and potential regulatory frameworks, assuming a jurisdiction like the U.S., where privacy laws are stringent. It involves seeking explicit authorization or following a documented, approved procedure for accessing user data, even for troubleshooting. This upholds the principle of least privilege and ensures that data access is justified and transparent. In a U.S. context, this aligns with principles found in laws like HIPAA, if health data is involved, or general data protection principles that emphasize consent and purpose limitation. Documenting the request and the approval process provides an audit trail and protects both the administrator and the organization. Correct approach is analysis. Accessing the user's mail database without explicit permission, even with the intent to resolve a performance issue, constitutes a breach of privacy and potentially violates data protection regulations. This action bypasses established protocols and could be construed as unauthorized access, leading to disciplinary action and legal repercussions for the organization. It erodes user trust and sets a dangerous precedent for data handling. Forwarding the user's emails to a general IT support mailbox without consent or a clear, documented policy authorizing such action is a severe privacy violation. This exposes sensitive personal and potentially confidential business communications to a wider group of individuals than necessary, increasing the risk of data leakage and misuse. It disregards the confidentiality expected by users regarding their electronic communications. Ignoring the issue and waiting for the user to report it further, while seemingly passive, can be problematic if the underlying cause is impacting multiple users or critical business function. While it avoids immediate privacy breaches, it fails to address potential systemic problems and could lead to prolonged operational disruptions, which might have their own compliance implications if service-level agreements are not met. However, in the context of this specific dilemma, it is less of a direct ethical/regulatory failure than the other two incorrect options. Professional reasoning. Professionals in system administration must operate within a framework of established policies, ethical guidelines, and relevant legal regulations. When faced with a situation involving user data, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the core issue and its potential impact. 2. Consulting relevant organizational policies and procedures regarding data access and privacy. 3. Assessing the necessity of accessing user data to resolve the issue. 4. If data access is deemed necessary, seeking explicit authorization from the user or a designated authority according to policy. 5. Documenting all actions taken, including requests for authorization and approvals. 6. Prioritizing user privacy and data confidentiality at all stages. 7. If unsure, escalating the issue to a supervisor or legal/compliance department. Question 14. Strategic planning requires a system administrator to balance urgent business requests with established security protocols. A key business unit manager urgently needs elevated access to a Lotus Domino database for a critical, time-sensitive project that has just been initiated. The manager states that the project deadline is imminent and that waiting for the standard access request and approval process will cause significant business disruption. The administrator knows that the standard process involves a formal request form, review by the IT security team, and final approval by a department head, which typically takes 2-3 business days. The manager is pressuring the administrator for immediate access. What is the most appropriate course of action for the system administrator? Option A. Inform the manager that access can only be granted through the established, documented approval process and offer to expedite the review of the formal request once it is submitted. Option B. Immediately escalate the request to the IT security manager and the business unit director, explaining the urgency and requesting an emergency override of the standard access procedure. Option C. Grant the manager immediate elevated access to the database, documenting the verbal request and the urgency, and initiate the formal approval process retroactively. Option D. Grant the manager temporary, limited access to the database that is sufficient for the immediate task, with a clear expiration date, and inform the manager that full access will require the standard approval process. The correct answer is C. Grant the manager immediate elevated access to the database, documenting the verbal request and the urgency, and initiate the formal approval process retroactively. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in system administration, where a perceived immediate business need conflicts with established security protocols and potential long-term risks. The challenge lies in balancing the urgency of a business request with the responsibility to maintain system integrity and data security, especially in a regulated environment. The administrator must consider the potential consequences of both compliance and non-compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established security policies and regulatory compliance. In the context of IBM Lotus, notes Domino 8.5 system administration, this means following documented procedures for granting elevated access, which typically involves a formal request, approval process, and audit trail. This ensures accountability, minimizes the risk of unauthorized access or data breaches, and aligns with general IT governance principles that are often implicitly or explicitly tied to regulatory frameworks concerning data protection and system security. Maintaining an audit trail is crucial for demonstrating compliance during any future audits. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting immediate access without proper authorization bypasses established security controls. This creates a significant security vulnerability, as the access may not be logged or properly revoked, leading to potential unauthorized data access or modification. This directly violates principles of least privilege and accountability, which are foundational to most IT security regulations. Escalating the request without attempting to find a policy-compliant solution is inefficient and can lead to unnecessary delays. While escalation is part of the process, it should be a step taken after exploring all avenues within the existing framework, not a substitute for it. This approach fails to demonstrate proactive problem-solving within the established governance structure. Ignoring the request and hoping it goes away is irresponsible. This inaction leaves the business function unsupported and can lead to the user seeking unauthorized workarounds, which further exacerbates security risks. It also demonstrates a lack of commitment to supporting business operations, even within security constraints. Professional reasoning. When faced with such a dilemma, a system administrator should first consult the organization's security policies and procedures. If the policy is unclear or the request falls into a gray area, the next step is to consult with the security team or a designated compliance officer. The goal is to find a solution that meets the business need while remaining within the established security and regulatory framework. If a policy-compliant solution cannot be immediately identified, the administrator should clearly communicate the risks and the process for obtaining temporary or conditional access, ensuring all actions are documented. Question 15. Risk assessment procedures indicate a user has requested a specific configuration change to a Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 server, claiming it is essential for a critical business function. The requested change involves altering a default security setting that, if implemented without full understanding, could potentially expose user data to unauthorized access. Administrator has limited direct knowledge of the specific business function, but is aware of the potential security implications of the requested modification. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 system administrator? Option A. Thoroughly investigate the requested change, understand its precise technical implications and security risks, consult relevant internal policies and potentially security or compliance teams, and proceed only with documented approval and a clear rollback plan. Option B. Decline the request outright due to the potential security risks, without further investigation or consultation. Option C. Implement the change immediately as requested by the user, prioritizing the claimed critical business function to avoid potential business disruption. Option D. Apply the change and monitor the system for any immediate security alerts, assuming the user's request is valid and the risks are manageable. The correct answer is A. Thoroughly investigate the requested change, understand its precise technical implications and security risks, consult relevant internal policies and potentially security or compliance teams, and proceed only with documented approval and a clear rollback plan. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in balancing operational efficiency with data privacy and security, particularly within the context of sensitive user information managed by Lotus Notes Domino. The administrator is faced with a request that, while seemingly beneficial for system performance, could inadvertently expose or misuse user data if not handled with extreme care. The ethical dilemma arises from the potential conflict between the administrator's duty to maintain system integrity and their responsibility to protect user privacy, as mandated by general data protection principles and potentially specific organizational policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough risk assessment and adherence to established change management protocols. This includes understanding the exact nature of the performance enhancement, verifying its necessity, and ensuring it does not compromise data confidentiality, integrity, or availability. The best professional practice is to consult with relevant stakeholders, including security and compliance teams, and to document the entire process, including the justification for the change and the mitigation strategies for any identified risks. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and the need for due diligence in system administration, ensuring that any modifications are authorized, understood, and implemented in a controlled manner that respects data protection. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the change without understanding its full implications is a direct violation of due diligence and could lead to data breaches or unauthorized access, failing to uphold the confidentiality and integrity of user data. This approach disregards the fundamental responsibility of a system administrator to protect the information entrusted to their care. Proceeding with the change based solely on the user's assertion of necessity, without independent verification or a formal risk assessment, demonstrates a lack of critical judgment and an abdication of responsibility. This could result in unintended consequences that negatively impact users and the organization, potentially violating data protection policies. Escalating the issue without attempting to gather sufficient information or propose potential solutions shows a lack of initiative and problem-solving skills. While escalation is sometimes necessary, it should be a last resort after a reasonable effort to understand and address the situation has been made, ensuring that the escalation provides clear, actionable information to the next level. Professional reasoning. Professionals in system administration must adopt a proactive and risk-aware mindset. When faced with requests that could impact system security or data privacy, the decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the request and its potential impact. 2. Consulting relevant policies and best practices. 3. Conducting a thorough risk assessment. 4. Seeking necessary approvals and involving relevant stakeholders. 5. Implementing changes in a controlled and documented manner. And 6. Verifying the outcome. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with organizational and regulatory requirements. Question 16. Strategic planning requires a proactive approach to optimizing user access and data management workflows within the IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. Environment. Considering the need to enhance operational efficiency while maintaining strict adherence to data security and privacy regulations, which of the following strategies best represents a professionally sound and compliant method for implementing process improvements? Option A. Conducting a thorough risk assessment and impact analysis for each proposed process change, followed by a phased rollout with comprehensive documentation and user training. Option B. Implementing a new access control policy that grants broader user permissions to expedite common tasks based on informal feedback from a few key users. Option C. Relying on automated scripts to modify user roles and permissions dynamically, assuming that the script logic inherently maintains security and compliance. Option D. Immediately deploying a system-wide configuration change to streamline data entry without prior testing or user notification to achieve rapid efficiency gains. The correct answer is B. Implementing a new access control policy that grants broader user permissions to expedite common tasks based on informal feedback from a few key users. Explanation. Strategic planning for process optimization in an IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. Environment, particularly concerning user access and data security, presents a significant professional challenge. Administrators must balance the need for efficient workflow and user productivity with stringent regulatory compliance and the inherent security risks associated with data management. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing changes that demonstrably improve operational efficiency without compromising data integrity, user privacy, or introducing new vulnerabilities. This requires a deep understanding of both the Domino architecture and the applicable regulatory landscape. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, documented, and risk-assessed implementation of process changes. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that any optimization efforts are thoroughly vetted for their impact on security and compliance. A systematic approach, including pilot testing and user feedback, minimizes disruption and allows for adjustments before full deployment. This methodology directly supports regulatory adherence by providing a clear audit trail and demonstrating due diligence in managing system changes. It reflects a commitment to responsible system administration, where efficiency gains are achieved through controlled and informed decision-making, thereby safeguarding against potential breaches and noncompliance. Incorrect approaches fail to meet these professional and regulatory standards. Implementing changes without a clear understanding of their downstream effects on security protocols or user access controls introduces significant risks. For instance, broadly granting elevated privileges to streamline a process without granular control or justification violates principles of least privilege and can lead to unauthorized data access or modification, a direct contravention of data protection regulations. Similarly, bypassing established change management procedures to expedite an optimization, even with good intentions, undermines accountability and makes it difficult to trace the origin of any subsequent issues, potentially leading to regulatory scrutiny for lack of proper governance. Relying solely on anecdotal evidence or user requests without technical validation or risk assessment also represents a failure to apply professional judgment and adhere to due diligence requirements. Professionals should approach process optimization by first conducting a comprehensive assessment of the current state, identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement. This assessment should be followed by a thorough analysis of potential solutions, evaluating their technical feasibility, security implications, and compliance impact. A risk assessment matrix should be developed and mitigation strategies identified. Proposed changes should then be documented, including the rationale, expected outcomes, and rollback plans. Implementation should occur in a controlled manner, often starting with a pilot group, with continuous monitoring and feedback collection. Finally, a post-implementation review should confirm that the optimization goals have been met and that no unintended negative consequences have arisen, ensuring a robust and compliant process. Question 17. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk associated with the current manual data entry process for user access requests in IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. This process is time-consuming and prone to human error, impacting overall system administration efficiency. Which of the following approaches best addresses this process optimization challenge while adhering to system administration best practices? Option A. Manually review and process each access request as it arrives, accepting the current inefficiencies as a necessary part of system security. Option B. Immediately deploy a new, unproven third-party tool that promises to automate access requests without extensive testing or user training. Option C. Instruct users to submit access requests via email to a general mailbox, assuming the system will eventually sort and process them. Option D. Implement an automated workflow for user access requests, including validation checks and automated notification to relevant administrators, with thorough testing and a documented rollback plan. The correct answer is D. Implement an automated workflow for user access requests, including validation checks and automated notification to relevant administrators, with thorough testing and a documented rollback plan. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in system administration, balancing the need for process optimization with the imperative to maintain system stability and security, especially within the context of IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8. 5. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing improvements without introducing unforeseen risks or violating established operational procedures and security protocols. Careful judgment is required to assess the potential impact of any change on user productivity, data integrity, and compliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based methodology for process optimization. By analyzing the existing workflow, identifying bottlenecks, and proposing targeted solutions, administrators can ensure that improvements are effective and sustainable. This aligns with the principles of good system administration, which emphasize proactive problem-solving and continuous improvement. Furthermore, any proposed changes must be documented and tested to ensure they do not negatively impact the system's security posture or introduce vulnerabilities, which is a critical aspect of maintaining a compliant and robust environment. The focus on user impact and rollback planning demonstrates a commitment to minimizing disruption and ensuring business continuity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing new features without understanding their impact on existing processes or user workflows is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to decreased productivity, increased support overhead, and potential security gaps if the new features are not properly configured or integrated. Another incorrect approach, which involves making changes without proper testing or documentation, directly violates best practices for system administration and can lead to system instability, data loss, and significant downtime. This also creates an environment where troubleshooting becomes extremely difficult and auditing or compliance checks are compromised. A third incorrect approach, which ignores user feedback or concerns, is detrimental to user adoption and can lead to resistance to change, ultimately hindering the intended benefits of process optimization. This also overlooks the ethical responsibility to ensure that system changes support, rather than impede, the work of the end users. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of current processes and their associated risks. This involves gathering data, consulting with stakeholders, including end users, and performing impact assessments. Proposed optimizations should be evaluated against clear objectives, with a focus on measurable improvements. Rigorous testing, phased rollouts, and comprehensive documentation are essential steps. A robust rollback plan should always be in place to mitigate any unforeseen negative consequences. This systematic approach ensures that process optimization efforts are aligned with business goals, maintain system integrity, and adhere to any relevant operational guidelines or security policies. Question 18. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new plugin for IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 could significantly improve user productivity by streamlining a common workflow. However, the plugin is from a third-party vendor with limited documentation on its security architecture and requires additional server resources. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the system administrator? Option A. Proceed with the plugin installation immediately to capitalize on the perceived productivity gains, as the cost-benefit analysis is favorable. Option B. Conduct a thorough security audit of the plugin, evaluate its resource impact on the Domino server, and pilot its deployment with a small group of users before a full rollout. Option C. Install the plugin on a test server, and if it functions correctly, deploy it to all users without further investigation into resource requirements or security implications. Option D. Decline the plugin implementation due to the lack of comprehensive security documentation, prioritizing system stability over potential productivity enhancements. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the plugin installation immediately to capitalize on the perceived productivity gains, as the cost-benefit analysis is favorable. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in system administration, balancing the desire for enhanced functionality and user experience with the inherent risks and resource implications of implementing new features. The professional challenge lies in making a decision that is not only technically sound, but also aligns with organizational policies, security best practices, and potentially regulatory compliance, even if not explicitly stated in the exam's limited scope. The need for a deep analysis implies moving beyond superficial understanding to consider the broader impact of administrative choices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based decision-making process. By conducting a thorough evaluation of both the benefits and drawbacks, including potential security vulnerabilities and the impact on existing infrastructure, the administrator ensures that the decision is informed and defensible. This aligns with the general principles of responsible IT management, which emphasize risk mitigation and resource optimization. While the exam syllabus for C2040-956 IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 System Administration Update does not specify a particular jurisdiction's regulatory framework for this specific question, the underlying principles of due diligence and risk assessment are universally applicable in professional IT environments. Incorrect approaches fail because they bypass essential due diligence. Implementing a new feature without a comprehensive understanding of its implications, particularly regarding security and resource consumption, exposes the system to unnecessary risks. This could lead to data breaches, system instability, or performance degradation, all of which have significant operational and potentially reputational consequences. From a professional standpoint, such actions demonstrate a lack of foresight and adherence to established IT governance principles. The professional reasoning process should involve 1. Clearly defining the problem or opportunity. 2. Gathering all relevant information, technical specifications, user feedback, security advisories, resource requirements. 3. Evaluating potential solutions against defined criteria, cost, benefit, risk, feasibility. 4. Consulting with stakeholders if necessary. And 5. Documenting the decision and its rationale. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are rational, transparent, and aligned with organizational objectives. Question 19. The control framework reveals that the current user onboarding process in IBM Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 is time-consuming, impacting new employee productivity. As a system administrator, you are tasked with optimizing this process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with maintaining system integrity and compliance while improving efficiency? Option A. Implement a new, automated onboarding script that bypasses manual verification steps to expedite the process, documenting the changes only after successful deployment. Option B. Develop and test a revised onboarding workflow that incorporates automated checks for essential security configurations and role assignments, with all changes thoroughly documented and reviewed by the security team prior to implementation. Option C. Directly modify existing user creation templates to include broader access privileges, assuming new users will require extensive permissions to be productive. Option D. Delegate the entire onboarding process to a junior administrator without providing specific guidelines or oversight, trusting their judgment to streamline the steps. The correct answer is A. Implement a new automated onboarding script that bypasses manual verification steps to expedite the process, documenting the changes only after successful deployment. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in system administration, balancing the need for efficient process optimization with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. In this scenario, the administrator is tasked with streamlining user onboarding, a critical process that directly impacts productivity and security. The challenge lies in identifying an optimization strategy that doesn't inadvertently create vulnerabilities or violate established security policies, which are often dictated by internal governance and potentially external regulatory requirements. Though for this exam, we focus on the internal control framework and best practices as defined by IBM's documentation for Lotus Notes Domino 8.5. The correct approach focuses on a phased, documented, and auditable optimization. This represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and controlled enhancement of the onboarding process. By involving stakeholders, conducting thorough testing, and ensuring all changes are logged and reviewed against existing security policies, the administrator minimizes the risk of introducing new security gaps or operational inefficiencies. This aligns with the principles of good governance and risk management, ensuring that process improvements do not compromise the integrity or security of the Lotus Notes Domino environment. An incorrect approach that bypasses standard change control procedures and documentation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach, even if it appears to speed up onboarding, creates an environment where unauthorized access could be facilitated, audit trails are incomplete, and the overall security posture of the system is weakened. This directly contravenes the principles of responsible system administration and could lead to data breaches, compliance violations, and reputational damage. Similarly, an approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness in security checks during onboarding would be a failure, as it neglects the fundamental requirement to verify user identities and assign appropriate access levels, thereby increasing the risk of insider threats or unauthorized access. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the existing control framework and security policies. Before implementing any optimization, administrators must assess the potential impact on security, compliance, and operational stability. A risk-based approach, where potential benefits are weighed against potential risks, is crucial. Engaging relevant stakeholders, including security teams and business unit representatives, ensures that all perspectives are considered. Furthermore, Adhering to established change management processes, including thorough testing and rollback plans, is paramount to mitigating unforeseen issues. Question 20. Quality control measures reveal that critical Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 server response times have significantly increased, impacting user productivity. The system administrator needs to address this performance degradation. Which of the following actions represents the most professional and compliant approach? Option A. Conduct a thorough analysis of server logs, performance metrics, and recent configuration changes to identify the root cause before implementing any solutions. Option B. Roll back the most recent application deployment, as it is the most likely culprit for the performance issues. Option C. Restart all affected Domino servers during peak business hours to see if the issue resolves itself. Option D. Immediately increase the server's memory allocation and disable non-essential logging to free up resources. Correct answer is D. Immediately increase the server's memory allocation and disable non-essential logging to free up resources. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in system administration, balancing performance optimization with the need for robust security and compliance. The pressure to improve response times for critical business functions is significant, but any optimization efforts must not inadvertently compromise data integrity or violate established security protocols. The system administrator must make a judgment call that prioritizes long-term stability and adherence to best practices over immediate, potentially superficial, gains. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of performance degradation and implementing solutions that are both effective and compliant. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation into the root cause of the performance issues. This includes analyzing system logs, monitoring resource utilization, CPU, memory, disk I/O, and reviewing recent configuration changes. By understanding the underlying reasons for the slowdown, the administrator can implement targeted solutions that address the actual problem. This aligns with best practices in system administration, which emphasize proactive monitoring, root cause analysis, and controlled implementation of changes. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach ensures that no actions are taken that could inadvertently expose sensitive data or create vulnerabilities, thereby maintaining compliance with any applicable data protection or security regulations that would be relevant to a Lotus Notes Domino 8.5 environment. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, untested configuration change without thorough analysis is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. For instance, indiscriminately increasing server cache settings without understanding their impact on memory management could lead to system instability or even data corruption, violating principles of data integrity and potentially breaching compliance requirements related to data availability and accuracy. Similarly, disabling security features to speed things up is a direct violation of security best practices and likely contravenes numerous regulatory frameworks designed to protect data. This creates unacceptable security risks and exposes the organization to potential data breaches and associated legal liabilities. Another incorrect approach would be to simply restart servers repeatedly without diagnosing the issue. While this might offer temporary relief, it fails to address the underlying problem, leading to recurring performance issues and demonstrating a lack of due diligence in system management, which could be seen as a failure to maintain a secure and reliable system as expected by organizational policies and potentially regulatory oversight. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first establishing a baseline of normal system behavior. Then they should employ a structured troubleshooting methodology, starting with observation and data collection, logs, performance metrics. This data should be analyzed to form hypotheses about the cause of the problem. Solutions should be developed based on these hypotheses, prioritized by their potential impact and risk. Before implementing any change, a rollback plan should be in place. Changes should be tested in a non-production environment if possible, or implemented during scheduled maintenance windows with careful monitoring. This systematic and risk-aware approach ensures that optimizations are effective, sustainable, and compliant with all relevant regulations and ethical standards.